In today's lesson, I'm going to help you improvise over the jazz blues by nailing the 3 most important chord changes in the progression, and I'm also going to teach you an 8th note etude to develop your chops over this must-know jazz progression. So pick up your guitars and let's learn the jazz blues. Greetings jazz guitar gurus, my name is Jamie. I'm the founder of jamiehorroyguitar.com, which is a blog, video lessons and Skype jazz guitar coaching, all geared to helping you become a better jazz guitar player. And if you haven't done so already, then please consider hitting the subscribe button to this channel. That way you're not going to miss any future uploads. Alright, so the jazz blues. We've talked about this in a previous session already, and in today's class I'm going to teach you how you can improvise over the chord changes. So I'm going to take as a given that you're comfortable with my first lesson, in which I teach you how to improvise over the jazz blues by just using the hybrid blues scale. So by now you should be completely confident improvising over the jazz blues using the blues scales and the jazz within the blues scale. So if you haven't checked that lesson out already, I'll put that in the card in this video so you can check it out. But without further ado, let's zoom in and check out how you can improvise over the changes in the jazz blues. Within the jazz blues progression, there's basically 3 different bars that really separate this from your standard 1-4-5 Chicago blues. The first is in bar 4, where we have the 2-5 into E flat. The second is in bar 9, where we have the 2-5 to the 2 chord. And then the last is the 2-5-1 in bars 9 and 10. Back to the 1 chord of B flat. So we're going to focus on outlining these chord changes because these are the chord changes which the jazz musicians really focus on. There's all kinds of things that you can play over these chord changes, but to keep things simple, I'm just going to show you a 5-note shape that you can use over all of them to begin with. The 5-note shape sounds like this. Over a B flat 7, that gives us the D flat, which is the sharp 9, the B natural, which is the flat 9, the root, and then we have the A flat, which is the 7th, and the 7th on the dominant chord always wants to resolve to the 3rd of the chord which it's going to. So I'll just play it in chords so you can hear the implication. And now in single lines. So, as I said, just 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 5th note is obviously the first note of the chord that you go into. On the music notation, you'll see that I have adapted this phrase to fit over those 3 important bars that I was just telling you about. The first time you see this lick is in bar 4 over the B flat 7 chord, resolving to the E flat chord. Then we hear it again in bar number 9 over the D half diminished G7 flat 9, which is the same notes. I could have played the exact same thing and just moved it down, but I wanted to keep this all in position for you, so I basically tried to keep it around the 6th fret as much as possible. So the lick into the C minor 7 chord again, and then we have a lick going back into the B flat 7. So this time it's starting on F, and remember I said that this phrase starts on the sharp 9, so you can always see it around that Hendrix chord if you like, and that phrase goes like this. Alright, so let's now hear this phrase against the jazz blues chord changes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. If this is completely new to you, then I recommend that you either do this over a backing track, a loop, or just over a click like what I did, and be very rhythmically precise about where you put in this phrase. This phrase only works because you're starting it on a certain beat of the bar, so you've got to be thinking of starting this phrase halfway into the bar on bar 3 in order for it to work. Now that you can do that, let's bring in the hybrid blues scale and have some fun mixing bebop and blues together. I've attached a little improvisation chart to this class which tells you how you can mix the two approaches. So this is just one way, and of course there's several ways in which you can do this, but to keep things simple, I've said that you can use the blues ideas in bars 1 to 3, and you can play anything you want. So you could take any of the licks from the previous class and put them in there, and then on the important chord changes I put that lick in, so you've got to try and get that lick in with your blues scale ideas. So here's an example of me doing it. Feel free to steal any licks or ideas that you want, but really it all comes down to the approach is what I want you to learn, because this approach of playing bluesy ideas on some parts of the progression and getting very changes orientated on other parts is a really useful improv strategy to be aware of when improvising over the jazz blues. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. As you probably noticed there, I tried to get that in as much as possible. Now, I wanted to try and make that fit in with the lines that I was playing, so I didn't want to cut short a good blues idea to force it in. However, I was aware that I could put those in the designated places, so I really recommend that you have some fun with that. Take 3 or 4 choruses and try to make sure that you get those important chord changes in. Of course, you can use any line, any 2-5-1 line, which you like to do that. This is just a really simple kind of 5-note pattern I picked out because the shorter phrases often work out easier to get in, but you should definitely check out some other phrases of your own using this idea. So now you hopefully feel confident playing blues and bebop ideas over a jazz blues. This improvisation tactic was used by great players such as Charlie Parker and Grant Green when they improvised over a jazz blues. Now obviously none of us mere mortals can ever hope to be that good, but this will certainly get us on the right path and at least in that style of playing. So I hope you have fun with what we've just done there. We're now going to go one step beyond that, and we're going to look at outlining the jazz blues chord changes using only 8th notes. So I've written out an 8th note etude over all 12 bars, and this is going to give you a nice constant flow throughout all the chord changes. So I'm going to play it first, then discuss some of the things that are going on with this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. As I'm sure you realised, there was no backing track or loop pedal for any of that, but hopefully you could hear all the jazz blues chord changes. And that's a very important point when you're improvising over a jazz blues, autumn leaves or any jazz standard. You should be able to hear what part of the progression the improviser is playing over, regardless of whether or not there's piano or bass in the background. So I recommend that you play through this etude to get the sound of the jazz blues chord changes in your ears, but then you want to take this further, right? You want to try and create your own 8th note ideas over the jazz blues, because the blues ideas that we do, they all sound good, but they tend to be kind of triplet orientated, kind of swing based rhythms, which is great. But in contrast to that, we want to have some nice 8th note passages that really outline these chord changes. Throughout the etude, I use a few reoccurring harmonic figures. Firstly, over the B flat, I often use the B flat major bebop scale. There's a few variations of this, but the one I've used here is basically, you could think of this as being a B flat Mixolydian scale with a natural seventh, so like a B flat major scale with an A and an A flat. I got this idea from the great guitarist Grant Green. He uses this scale on his fantastic solo on Cool Blues, so I recommend checking that out. Besides the bebop scale, I've also used 1, 2, 3, 5 or Coltrane patterns a lot throughout this etude. I have a full video explaining what those are, so I'll link to that in the card so you can catch up. Finally, I don't know if you did notice this or not, but there is the original 5-note cell at each of the given points where it should be in this etude. So that 5-note lick that you heard in the first etude is used in this as well. I know it's certainly not as apparent as what it is in the first etude, but hopefully if you dig through that you'll be able to find it. Let me know in the comment section below, did you catch on that that same idea was being used? Let me know, I'm curious to find out. So just on that, there is actually a few times where I had to take that original lick and lower it down an octave so it fit within where I was at a given time on the neck, but the lick is still there, so that is used also as a study as to how you could develop that and change it into something else. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed working with these jazz blues etudes, and I hope you're on your path to becoming a jazz blues master. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions in the box below, and I look forward to seeing you in part 3 of this jazz blues video lesson series.